very much, everyone. Excellent, excellent, excellent. If somebody could get Molly Seeley anywhere near me, that would be wonderful. Oh, Molly, you're such a sweetheart. Rosanne's hopeless at IT and I'm brilliant at it, but I didn't want to embarrass her, so I normally find that I say something that isn't funny and then I say, that's the only joke of the morning, and everybody goes, yeah, that didn't work either. I'm seriously milking it and it's not working today. Okay, good. Well, anyway, because I'm in charge, we're running 15 minutes late already. I know. And I've already said to the Latin American network that they've got 15 minutes. Go figure that later, but anyway. Anyway, you are all very welcome back. This is a great session. We've got two incredible sets of presentations to deliver. It's my honour to introduce both of them. First up, we have Rosanne Haggerty, who, as I think is known to nearly everybody in the room, and if she isn't, Rosanne is the president of Community Solutions, and we met over 20 years ago in a project called Times Square in New York. I could dwell on her extraordinary career and all that she has done and will continue to do to help homeless people. But what I would like to say is Rosanne is one of the most decent, loving, brilliant, talented human beings that exists in the world. And so it is my pleasure that she is part of the conference. She's part of the Institute on Global Homelessness, and she's my friend. Rosanne Haggerty.
Thank you, Louise, and lovely to be with you. I'll just start by saying how privileged I am to serve on IGH's advisory board, and I feel especially grateful as our time winds down here today to DePaul University and to DePaul International for creating this international community of problem solvers. And I'm going to maybe quote an observation made by Kat the other day, that this gathering feels a bit like a family wedding, where we get to see people from different chapters and geographies of our work and all in one place. And it feels momentous, actually, and it feels hopeful in the way that the wedding does, too. And this sense of important relationships and experiences coming together contributes to the strong sense of the passage of time I've been feeling as well. Two moments stood out for me, particularly yesterday. One was the welcome from Mark, reminding us that it's been 2 years since many of us were together here for the first IGH conference. And so much has changed in 2 years, and too little of it for the good. Brexit, Trump, the deepening assaults on civility and the social contract, terrorist attacks just this week, and breaches of formal agreements to protect our planet. We're confronted daily with the awareness that all of us who value the dignity of each person needs to step up for others in new ways. And the second kind of grounding in a sense of time and the fleetingness of time was seeing this slide yesterday. I'm not going to risk touching anything more there. Now, my colleague Beth Sandor used this in a presentation yesterday on defining an end to homelessness. And on the one hand, it shows the interconnections among us here. Meeting Louise and becoming familiar with the Rough Sleepers Initiative in the UK 20 years ago led to an adoption of a similar approach in Times Square that led to 100,000 Homes campaign, and now we're Built for Zero work and many connections and movement-based activities around the world. And so it's a marvelous thing to see how breakthroughs in reducing homelessness in one place can be transferred and become the foundation for further breakthroughs in other countries. But this process took 20 years. Which leads me to my message today. It's time we take ownership of ending street homelessness everywhere. And that's why you were personally invited here, and what's different about this gathering. The goal of ending street homelessness, because it's not merely an aspiration, but I think we share a vision of an end state where a different set of beliefs and behaviors about homelessness have prevailed. And amongst us in the room, There are people here, you have demonstrated that long-term homelessness can be eliminated and that vulnerable people need never end up on the street based on how we organize our community's actions and resources. We know that homelessness is not inevitable. We know that it's people and it's the design of human-made systems, institutions, rules that causes homelessness, and that ideas, institutions, and behavior can change. None of this is immutable, the things that prevent us from ending homelessness. And we also know that it's not some other group of people outside of this room that's going to take ownership of the mindset and the behavior and the resource problems that will need to be solved to put us on the path to ending street homelessness. There isn't a collection of people in the world who knows more than we know, or has had more experience than we've had. So it lands here. I'm finding that thinking about the end of anything is a powerful exercise. Let's think about it. Thinking about the end of a job, of an experience, of a trip, and especially of a life. It triggers a flood of memories mixed with questions. And in thinking about the end of street homelessness as a personal commitment, it's as though a whole film has been playing in my mind. Like many of you, my first encounter with homelessness was as a shelter volunteer back in the day, working with good people, but without any goals or expectation of results for the people using the shelter. And then fast forwarding a bit, their memories of various permanent supportive housing buildings I worked on, but that required residents to be clean and sober before moving in, and memories of people still living on the sidewalks outside our buildings because they didn't meet our eligibility requirements. This is before we got smart and adopted the housing first approach. And then in the film, there are memories of moments where I learned painful lessons about the dishonesty of our own practices by seeing homelessness in other contexts. Like my first visit to Japan, speaking with a group of homeless men, about 20 men outside Shibuya Station in the middle of the night with a translator, and learning from them how government was gaming the numbers by only counting homelessness at certain times and in certain places. And then on my first visit to Australia, how in meeting with different providers in Brisbane, everyone was talking about, oh, it's the same group of people that we move between our programs and between our programs in Brisbane and the north. And it's been for years. We know them. They're moving around. And seeing these practices and how crazy they were in other contexts jarred me into seeing how we were doing the very same things in New York. But it took going to these other places to realize that. I could come back and see how people we've been passing on the streets in Times Square, we didn't even know their names. And when, kind of goaded by these international experiences, we hired interns to go out and speak with every person on the street. We heard heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story of people passed around through different programs, never getting the help they needed. And of course, we were saying they were service resistant, that it was their fault that they weren't moving out of homelessness. But then there's a memory as this film continues of an awakening. A scene with Dame Louise here of standing outside the Army-Navy store in London as Louise and her colleague Gordon patiently persuaded a man named John to come along to the home they had waiting for him. And then a rush of memories inspired by this. It's about the people and it's about our changing our behavior to go out and help bring them in, of working with amazing colleagues, local outreach workers in places like New Orleans. I think of Mike Miller, and sort of knocking on the doors of tents after Katrina, and going with outreach workers behind a truck stop in this desert outside Albuquerque, and then with Beth and other colleagues at the sidewalks of LA and Skid Row, and actually getting people's names and putting them on the path to housing. And seeing more and more of that happen in our country as people came together to move 100,000 of the most vulnerable people into homes. And finally, there are the recent memories of community teams who now have the expertise to build coordinated housing systems, maintain by-name lists, and rigorously track and improve their way toward ending chronic and veteran homelessness. So it's sobering to contemplate how slow I was to ask the right questions, to put the interests of vulnerable homeless people ahead of our organization's interests, to recognize that we had become part of an institutionalized system that was getting in the way of ending homelessness, to understand that homelessness is a symptom of the larger problem of fragmented systems and inadequate accountability for results, for a failure to act with a sense of urgency. But we're all in a different place now. We know enough to get started, actually, and to hold ourselves accountable for reaching the end of street homelessness. Now, no important and urgent mission anywhere, ever, began with perfect knowledge and adequate resources. What is necessary to make anything significant happen in the world is being accountable to the end state we want, to be, in our case, accountable to the end state of ending street homelessness. We need to be accountable for being in constant problem-solving mode. That's how we move forward into shifting accountability from program and organizational level outcomes to what's happening in my community. And there is so much more at stake these days than homelessness. The world needs examples of people coming together to solve hard problems, to do unimaginably bold things, like end preventable human suffering. And there's a lot we can learn from other unimaginably bold movements, like ending smallpox. Let me play this short video.
Can we start off? What are some of the lessons that we've learned from the eradication of smallpox?
I think the lessons from smallpox eradication have to do with very simple things. Things do not happen by chance, particularly good things. And so you have to have a plan, an objective, figure out how to do that. Number two, you have to know the truth. And we would oftentimes like not to know how much smallpox there is in an area, but you simply have to have a surveillance system that provides the truth if you're going to get rid of it. Number three, it requires a coalition to do anything. None of us can do something on our own anymore. Probably never could, but particularly now, we need a coalition. And so the leaders in global health are not defined by a title, that is head of WHO or head of UNICEF or something. They're defined by the people who can put together a coalition that actually works. So those are some of the big lessons, but I think we also have to have optimism that this actually worked. We got rid of smallpox in the entire world. It is possible to have a global objective and reach that objective.
So you're saying we've eradicated the smallpox, but if you look around at some of the big killers today.
This program is brought to you by Emory University.
So no way is ending street homelessness harder than ending smallpox. And what we know is that the key to solving complex problems is in truthful data, collaboration, and accountability to the result, to the necessary behavior changes, especially our own behavior changes in the homelessness sector. We need to get personal, by name information, not just anonymous general estimates. We need to act with urgency and abandon our bureaucracies. We need to act like the crisis it is. We need to be committed to outcomes and not just worthy efforts. We need to raise the bar on our performance. And we need to be in collaboration with each other. Forget competition. We've got to reject the terms we've been given because competition just doesn't work to solve this problem. Now, Peter Block, who's an American author, community leader, and overall wise man, recently observed that leaders don't create powerful social movements. Leaders recognize when powerful social movements are underway, then they name them and they take responsibility for reaching their aims. And I believe that is why each of us showed up here. We sense that this movement is happening already, and we're prepared to be part of it. In Europe, the End Street Homelessness campaign is spreading. The 20,000 Homes campaign is underway in Canada. Australia is planning a national effort. In the US, Built for Zero now involves more than 70 cities, counties, and states. And the Vanguard Cities effort of IGH aims to spread, accelerate, and connect these and other efforts. Now, there's a lot we need to figure out as we work back from the end. How to set targets, how to collect and manage trustworthy data, ways to spread learning and support each other, how to develop new housing, forms, and finance mechanisms, how to drive behavior change, and how to refocus resources around the world. And especially importantly, how to communicate what's happening to change the story on homelessness. But it's not a matter of getting started. We are already, all of us here, moving. And speaking for IGH, we're excited to be on the journey with you. Thank you.